Hello, and welcome once again to E-MetroTel. Today's topic, Introduction to the Galaxy Mini Basic Telephony Configuration. Again, I'm your host, Brad Ford, Product Manager here at E-MetroTel. Customer scenario we're looking at here is a small site customer, in this case a transition from a Norstar BCM KIX or mixed size system, which would then be suitable for either a Galaxy Mini, which we're using in the example today, or a Galaxy 250. The Galaxy Mini that we're using happens to have 4 FXS ports and 4 FXO ports. Those are indicated by the green for the FXS and the red for the FXO. Those LEDs actually light on the panel when they are configured in the box. This customer has 3 PSTN lines, 7001, 7002, 7003. They're connected to ports 5, 6, and 7 on the front panel, and we'll refer to them as lines 1, 2, and 3. This customer actually wants them to appear and ring on all sets that they're using in a square configuration. The square configuration allows anybody to answer a call, find out who the intended recipient is, place the call on hold, yell across the office to the proper person and tell them that they have a call on line 1, line 2, or line 3. But they also have a paging system that goes back out to the shop floor. That overhead paging would be connected to the speaker port on the Galaxy Mini through a impedance matching transformer. Now, this customer has 5 phones. 2 of them are connected via IP, and they're 2 5006s. And then we have a DSM-16 module with 3 Norstar sets, an M7324 and 2 T7316 sets. Now, they also, each of these are going to have extensions, and we've labeled them 221 through 225. Now, the intended configuration of the 5006 is to have the 3 line appearances on the left-hand side of the display, page button on the right-hand side above the 2 extension buttons. Now, for the M7324, it's the same layout as far as the key numbering, but it's all on the right-hand side, starting with the standard hands-free button on the bottom of the 7324, right-hand side, 2 extension keys, the page button, and then the 3 line keys. The 7316, same thing, hands-free on the bottom right-hand corner, 2 extensions, the page button, and the 3 line keys. The way we configure that is through our web-based configuration utility, which is accessed by typing in the default IP address of the Galaxy, 192.168.1.200, into a Chrome browser. So I've opened a Chrome browser, pointed it to 192.168.1.200, and I'm entering my credentials. We land on the dashboard page. This always gives you a quick overview of how the system is performing. Today's session isn't intended to go through all the various components within the web-based configuration utility. Instead, I'm just going to focus on the telephony programming to accomplish the functionality described in the previous section. So the first thing we're going to look at is the PSTN cards. They are at a system level basis because they're communicating to the software via DoDi interface. DoDi software interface has already been able to determine that the system has an FXO module and an FXS module. The FXS module is located on the left-hand side of the RJ11 ports, so it is assigned ports 1, 2, 3, and 4. FXS will always show green on these numbers when they are active. The FXO port numbers are 5, 6, 7, and 8 because they are on the right-hand side of the RJ11 jacks. And 5, 6, and 7 show green because I've already plugged in the incoming PSTN lines to it. 8 is open, but it is active and configured because it is showing green. If I only had single port FXOs or FXSs installed in here, only the appropriate either port 1 or port 5 would be shown as available. So having checked that, we're going to go into the PBX section. PBX has a number of tabs, but the only one we'll look at today is the PBX configuration. You can see that it's organized. There's a basic section for extensions and numbering plan and trunk configuration. There's outbound call control. There's inbound call control, settings, applications, and remote access. Specifically today, we're going to look at the Nortel extensions. We're going to look at trunks. We're going to do some configuration of outbound routes, inbound routes, ring groups, and PSTN trunk DIDs. First thing we're going to do is program the 5 extensions. If I was working with SIP extensions or analog extensions, they would be configured in the first item here. But we're working on Nortel extensions for those 5006 Infinity phones and the M7324 and the 2 T7316s. So we'll start by adding a Nortel device. As we build the extension, we build the base functionality, which is common for the most part between all the extensions on a system. We assign it an extension number, and the first one we had was 221. We'll give it a display name, and this is going to be the admin desk set. A lot of various functionality that I will not get into here. But the key thing that I want to do is choose which set I'm going to use. You can see it says that it already knows that this device uses Nortel technology. If I was adding an analog set, it would say this device uses DOTI technology. If it was a SIP set, it would say this device uses SIP technology, and there'd be different parameters within this section. You'll notice that I have 5 phones that I want to configure. I've got them all connected to the Galaxy Mini already, and the Galaxy Mini has recognized that they are trying to talk to the UCX software. They just don't have any assignment yet. You can see that we've identified that there's 2 5006s, an M7324, and the 2 7316s. We also know the MAC addresses of the 2 5006s and their IP address. The M7324 and 7316s, the DSM16 software, creates a pseudo MAC address and then associates that with the IP address of the DSM16 interface itself. We know that the 3 ports are all on the same DSM16, and we actually know which pairs of wires are associated with the 3 different sets, so we could use that for tracing terminations. This is going to be the 5006. We're going to actually choose this one as the admin desk device. We will scroll down. We will notice that voicemail is disabled. We're going to enable it. The voicemail password is by default the numbers followed by the extension number. 829 being the letters UCX on the telephone keypad. Once we've done that, we've already assigned voicemail to that user. We will submit from here. And you'll see now that when we go into the Nortel extensions, the admin desk shows up. We're going to go back into that now that we're actually configuring the Nortel properties. Tells us that that's a 5006. It's got that MAC address repeated. We're actually going to assign it 2 extension appearances. Again, there's a lot of flexibility, default settings for volumes, contrast, things like that. We won't be doing anything with that, but we are going to program the keys. Now, if you recall, we were going to put the page button on the first key above the extensions, which would be key 3. The way we access that is with a *62 code. The other 3 were going to be the line appearances of line 1, 2, and 3. So we will label them line 1, line 2, and line 3. So now what we need to do is provide a set of instructions for the UCX software to recognize each of these buttons and associate them with both inbound routes and outbound routes, so that when line 1 is being in use, the button will indicate on any phone that has this shared call appearance. We do that by typing SCA for shared call appearance, colon, and this is line 1, so we will say that's the first appearance of shared call group 1. You'll see how we use the same tag, the SCG1, or shared call group 1, in both the inbound and outbound configurations. This one will be shared call appearance 2 of shared call group 1. And finally, shared call appearance 3 of shared call group 1. A system can have multiple shared call groups with different designations, and they can be applied to different groups of phones. So sales may have one shared call group and support another. We do that and we submit the changes. And at this point in time, I'm going to apply the configuration, essentially saving that functionality within the UCX software. I could do the same process for the other 4 sets using the Add Nortel Device functionality, or I could do a bulk add. The bulk add capability will take a template extension. We've built 221, so that's our only option, but it's fine because it's going to be the same template across all 4 of the other sets. We will assign it by extension range, and those from our customer requirements we know are 222 through 225. We will prepare the template. This template is built off of the fact that we have a 5006 configured 4221, which was our template. So you'll see that that's populated as a set type. We're going to change that. We know that this is an M7324 for line 223 and 224 and 225 are T73 16s. Display name, we don't want them to just say the extension number, which is default. So we are going to call this Brad. We're going to call this one Artavan, Julia, and Patricia. If I knew the MAC addresses and wanted to type them all in by hand, I could do that at this point in time. You'll see that the template has automatically generated voicemail extensions for these users, which means that voicemail is active for them because that was what was in our template. And they follow the same pattern. 829, the letters UCX on the keypad, followed by the extension. We next click Create Extensions. We apply that configuration, and we can go back to our Nortel extensions. And over on this side of the screen, you will see the settings for the admin desk, Brad, Artavan, Julia, and Patricia. The one piece of configuration that we still need to do on an extension basis is assign the MAC address. We use the select button to be able to find the sets that we've connected, and this was going to be a 5006, so we choose that. If we scroll down, all of these settings would be based on the settings that were put in place for the template, and you will see that page line 1, line 2, and line 3 appear on. We do that for each of the other devices, where we really just have to select which phone it is. 223 was going to be the 7324. I do want to scroll down and show that now the programmable keys at the bottom reflect the key layout of a 7324. These other slots are available to assign, and we actually make a simple drop-down menu for quick access to the extension side features that we offer. We'll submit that change. We go into Julia T7316. Again, we can select the set, scroll down, and once again you see the additional keys. We submit those changes, and finally select Patricia's set, and we submit those changes. If we apply our config, now all our extension programming is complete. So next we're going to deal with the inbound trunks. We have the 3 lines coming in from the PSTN. So we are going to configure inbound routes, but we're also going to configure ring groups so that when those calls come in on any of the trunks, it rings all the sets. But one step that we need to do first, before either the ring groups or the DID, the inbound routes, is to configure the trunk DIDs. And in order to do that, we have to first create the trunks. So that's under the basic configuration. We know that we're dealing with DOTI trunks, so we have to add a DOTI interface trunk. Our names, as we indicated, we're going to associate the first trunk with the name line 1. On this page, the only other thing that we have to do for our particular configuration is choose which channel within the DOTI interface is the trunk called line 1. We're going to submit that. You get a warning here about outbound caller ID, but because these are PSTN analog trunks, we don't set caller ID. So we accept that. We have 3 trunks to add, so we do that repeatedly for the second and third. You can see now analog channel 5 has been already assigned, so it's not an option to add to this. We submit those, accept the warning, and add our third one, which we will call line 3. And we know that that's one associated with channel 7. We submit those changes and apply configs. And we have the 3 trunks added. Next thing that we need to do, because the UCX software is looking on inbound routes, you can see one of the entries has to be the DID number associated with that route. That's how it knows to follow the instructions in this page, is by matching the incoming DID with the entries that are in the incoming route list. Now these are not signaling capable links, they're analog trunks. So we have to actually take a step first to configure and associate DIDs with the PSTN trunks that we just created. It's done on a PSTN interface card basis, and we know those channels were 5, 6, and 7. So we are going to associate channel 1 with line 1. We know that the last 4 digits of the PSTN numbers were 7001, 7002, 7003. So just for simplicity, we will associate DID numbers of 7001, 7002, and 7003 with each of those interfaces. And our third one, line 3, DID of 7003. Submit the changes. You can see there's basic information. Line 1 is 7001, line 2, 7002, line 3, 7003. We can apply that configuration. So now when we look at inbound routes, and there we'll be able to use those 3 numbers and create 3 distinct routes for those calls. You'll see that there's also a line for shared call tags. The shared calls tag will be the shared call appearance information that we put in the extension configuration. But before we get to that, there's one last thing. When we're going to have to tell the UCX software where to terminate that call. You'll see that we have a lot of different options. Typically we would use either terminated on a directory, an extension, IVR, but because we want it to ring multiple sets, we're going to use ring groups. Now I could choose a ring group now in this drop down, and it would take me directly to the ring group settings since I don't have an existing one, or it would offer me anything that's already programmed. We're not going to program it here. I'm going to go over in that inbound call control to the ring group settings. The ring group settings have a extension number associated with it. It defaults to starting with a number. If I add a second one after configuring this, it would show up as 601. We need to put in a description, and we're going to say ring 5 sets. It's an arbitrary name. We're going to ring them all. There's a number of different, we could have it hunt through sets, various strategies for how we ring, but we're going to do ring all. We're going to let it ring for 20 seconds before doing something. And then there's an area for an extension list. Now I could type them in quickly by hand here, or I could show you how we actually also have a extension quick pick. From here, I simply select the extensions that I want to include. And so I believe I have all 5 of them, and if I look at the list now, they are all there. Now I could actually have it play an announcement. We could play music on hold. There's a lot of different options here again. But now we also have to choose a destination if none of those 5 phones were able to answer it within that 20-second timeout that we put. In this case, we're going to have it go to voicemail. And it'll be the voicemail of the admin desk. We're going to submit those changes. You'll see that it's added on our right-hand column here. And we'll apply that config. So finally now we can go back to inbound routes. We're going to create 3 routes, one for each of those DIDs. And the DID numbers that we chose were 7001. Oh, we need to have a description, so this will be line 1, 7001. I told you we're going to have to fill in the shared calls tag. So here we're going to choose shared call group 1. Again, that was an arbitrary name that we chose, but it has to be common between what's programmed on the extensions and what's programmed in either incoming or outgoing routes. We don't care about any of the other items in here at this point in time, but now we're going to choose to terminate that call or set the destination on ring groups. We only have 1, so it's already selected the ring 5 set group that we had. If I needed to do another one, I could simply add a new ring group from here, and it would take me to that same page we just visited. We're going to submit that. And we will add a new incoming route. This one is line 2. DID number of 7002. Shared call tag of SCG1. And again, we want that same ring group. Submit. And add our last line 3, DID number of 7003, shared call tag of SCG1, and our ring group. Apply the configuration, and now we have inbound call control set for this system. So finally, we have outbound routes to configure. Outbound routes, again, there's a significant number of options for configuring outbound routes, but for these analog trunks, it's relatively straightforward. We assign a route name. We will call this one actually local calling. Because for now, for this example, I only want to do 10-digit dialing within my local area code. We'll identify how that happens when we reach the dial patterns that will use this route. But for now, we would skip over the routes CID because again, these are analog trunks, so we can't provide a caller ID information to the network. The PSTN decides what those caller ID parameters are. The only setting we really have to worry about here in additional settings is our shared call group tags. This will be the same as used on the extension configuration and on the incoming trunks. That way, when a call is terminated from the network to the Galaxy Mini, it will show up on a call appearance on the set. And when a outgoing call is placed using this route, it will also be associated with that button. Now, the information for how to configure your dial patterns is included in this hover help. When any of these question marks, you can hover over and get additional information about that setting. You can also consult the documentation on our documentation website. But I am specifically going to set the pattern to be, for my area code, 403 NXX. So can be any NXX within 403 and any 4 digits after that. So anytime the software recognizes a dial string that starts with 403, has the numbers 2 through 9, which is what's represented by N, and then any of digits 0 through 9 following that for those 6 particular places, it will choose this route if it sees this route first. If there's another matching pattern on another route that's higher in the priority list, then it will choose that. So you have to be very careful when configuring these dial strings. We also actually, I should point out that we do have dial plan wizards that will create the template for you to be able to use to follow these. However, this one I want just local, so I've been specific with an area code in front of it. So now we choose which trunks we want to use and in what order of preference when calls are placed that match this pattern. We're going to go line 3, line 2, and then line 1. And finally, we actually have an ability to choose what type of action the software performs when the trunks are all busy. In our case, we will leave it as a normal congestion action. We're going to submit that change. Once more, we'll apply the configuration. If this was a real-life scenario, we would need to make sure that we accounted for all the possible dialing sequences. 1 for long distance, international dialing, 7-digit dialing, etc. At this point, we actually have fully configured the system. Here you can see the customer configuration. We have the Galaxy Mini on the bottom. We have the DSM-16, our 2 5006 sets, the red M7324, and 2 T7316 sets. A call will be placed to line 1, and you can see the indicators on each of the sets all flashing on line 1. We are going to answer it, and I'll go and mute. Each of the sets show the indicator for line 1. I will place this call on hold. It's now flashing on the other sets. I simply press another button on those sets. The call is now transferred over to the new extension. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I hope that you've learned a little and got a better appreciation of some of the capabilities of the UCX software running in a small business environment on either the Galaxy Mini or on a Galaxy 250. Thank you very much.